So my question is with relation to veteran members of the team who've maybe been part of the organization for years and years and years. How do you handle the changing of standards where maybe according to old standards, certain expectations were set and now the expectations have changed? How do you handle pushback and eliminate entitlement?
What a great question. How many of you have had this experience and you want to know the answer to this question really bad right now? Just curious. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to empower you guys. By the way, this is I just asked that because it's a very common thing, right? We all deal with it because as you grow, things change, right? And you want to become really good at this conversation and leading. It's not even a conversation, leading this process with your organization. This is all about your level of influence as a leader, right? And so I'm going to empower you guys to do your absolute best, at giving the goods on this if you've had these experiences.
The two kind of powerful conversations that I think you have to have, exactly what these guys said. Number one is just the DVM. And that's very hard because, again, DVMs, they're trying to retain people. They're about relationships a lot of times. And a lot of times they're kind of people pleasers. It's hard to hold a firm line when they feel like it's going to end up hurting the bottom line. And so one of the really powerful conversations I've had with both DVMs is, number one, I need you to always answer anytime someone comes to you with something with, what did Brian say? And that's hard, but that's so important. The happiest day of my life as a coordinator was the first time my very people pleaser of a manager goes, hey, what did Brian say, by the way? And they're like, well, and John's like, you got to go talk to Brian. If you haven't even talked to him yet, there's no reason this should be coming to me. But the powerful conversation with my DVM was, hey man, please empower me to work in your interests and the interests of the program and the interests of the division. And part of that too, I said, honestly, I will be the buffer. I will be the shield. I'll be the bad guy when there has to be a bad guy, because sometimes there's a bad guy because it's human interactions. But the other conversation is how you have it with that individual person, and you just have to be direct. You just have to be direct. And the reality is, I kind of did a few lines of it. That's literally the conversation. Thank you for everything you have done. You've been so important to the program. We want you, we need you, but this change is happening. I would rather it happen with you, but it's happening either way. So you can either kind of be a part of what we're building, but if you can't, that's okay. I love you, I respect you, I'll buy you a beer, but the reality is you're not going to be able to work events anymore. And you just have to be direct and don't apologize for it. And then if people lash out to that emotionally, if they try to get a rise out of you, just try not to take the bait. I think the worst version of that conversation I ever had, they were like, show me in my contract where it says I have to abide by your policies. And I said, fair. Show me in your contract where it says you get to work events. To which point they went, at which point they were like, bah. And I was like, we don't need to do this. This doesn't need to go this way. Let's bring it down. How's your family? Let's do a lap. And then let's kind of come back to what you're really feeling and what we can do about it. Stand your ground.
Good answers? Yes or yes? Was that good? Yes or yes? All right, awesome. Just want to give you guys an opportunity. Who's got a question for one of the speakers? All right, Pato's got a question. Since you were a speaker, we'll let you ask it first.
Okay. Going to y'all about exceptions or favoritism given towards high CSPs. Have y'all ever had a sacrificial lamb moment with the top performer where they weren't pulling their weight or something like that? And then secondly, even if it didn't go that far, any advice for if you had to handle a situation like that?
Here's the deal. You never create a sacrificial lamb. Someone puts himself on the altar, okay? If someone's not willing to abide by the standards, that's not your fault. It's not about punishment. It's about consequences. And as long as you were clear and consistent with what was going to happen, then that's just a natural consequence of what they decided to do. Yeah. I think the first thing is you have to accept that people are going to feel what they feel, and you can't think your way out of an emotion. So if someone's in a place where they're heated or they're frustrated or they're angry, you kind of have to be the big kid, and you just have to sort of indulge that up to a point. But that's why it's very important that you have documented policies that have been shared in the beginning. If someone is surprised that they violated a policy, that's really as much a failing of yours or your organization as it was of that individual, because you haven't made it readily known and available. So I think the big thing for us is we literally break out the policy document. My team hears this all the time. They hate this phrase, but I always say this is not punishment, this is consequences, but this is what all of us have agreed to, and this is what we're all bound by. But I think the most important part of that conversation, even when we've suspended people from the program indefinitely, is you always try to end it with a conversation about how they can make things right. And even if you don't quite know what that looks like, you at least should leave them with a vision of, hey man, this doesn't have to be forever. You made a bad call or we made a mistake, but let's work towards getting things right so me and you can have a follow-up communication 2 months from now. Let's see where we're at.
One follow-up to that. Who do you get backing from before you have that conversation?
Again, everything should begin and end with your DVM. Again, my DVMs I think probably do less than a lot of yours, but it's because they're so included that I always have their backing. So you should prep. It's just like the influencer conversation on policy stuff. Your DVM should not be surprised when they get a call from this very frustrated person that's very important to the overall division's health. They should already know that is coming. They should know why the conversation is going to happen. And honestly, if they want to sit in on it, I'm great with that too.